Hello and welcome to the Excel in Retirement podcast, where we help good people make wise financial decisions so that they can excel in retirement. Your guide is David Treats, a financial advisor who shares his expertise to help you achieve greater peace of mind about your finances today and have the information you need to create a plan for your future so you can excel in retirement. I'm the host of the show, Andy Traub, and today David and I are going to discuss, and he's going to help you understand the importance of the age 59 and a half, and how there's two different groups that approach that age and which group you want to be in. So David, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
So I think of ages. 13 is an important age in a lot. 18, well, 16 for driving, 18, right? 21 is,
Right.
big one, right? I added 25 at some point in my life because that's when you could rent a car. For some reason, they don't trust 21-year-olds with cars. 25, right? And then people kind of do the 30 and the 40 and then the 50. And then it's usually, I think the next number most people think of is 65.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about 59 and a half
Right.
and why you so often have to have conversations with people about the importance of that age. And I'm assuming that the government came up with 59 and a half through some algorithm that we'll never understand.
Yes.
So we're not going to try to understand maybe where it came from unless you know. But tell me, just in your job, and for those listening, tell them why they should really, really care about 59 and a half.
Yeah. So it's an arbitrary age the IRS came up with or the government came up with. And if you have used a qualified account like a 401k or an IRA or 403b to save for retirement, it's kind of like you're flying at altitude and then the plane kind of starts descending down when you're getting closer to your destination. Well, you're kind of starting to get closer to for many people, their destination of retirement. And so we can make a switch oftentimes when we're 59 and a half. And if we're still employed, a lot of times employer plans will allow you to do what's called an in-service transfer, where you can remain employed with that employer, but you can roll out a portion or oftentimes all of your money to a self-directed IRA. That's not a taxable event. It's a lateral move from one financial custodian to the next. And so you don't incur any taxes for doing that. The only time that you would incur taxes is if that money hits your bank account, and then it would be coded as a distribution. But really, what people are typically doing is they understand, employers often understand that investing when we're in our 30s, 40s, and maybe even our 50s is a little bit different than when we were in our 60s. And so we don't have as long of a time horizon before we're possibly going to use our money. And so they allow you to take that money out to invest it differently for retirement. And so that's what happens. Some plans don't allow for them, but most do. And so you have that option. And then the other thing is that's when the 10% penalty goes away. So,
Well, let's run through that real quick. Let's just say I'm
Cool.
53.
Yes.
I'm like, man, I got this money in this account.
Okay.
I'd love to use it. And I call you and I'm like, hey man, I got this money in this account. I want to go to Greece with my wife for 3 weeks. Can I tap into that? And
Typically,
the
yeah,
answer is yes, but
right.
right. So tell us about that penalty.
Yeah, typically you can't take money out. There's some small categories for why you can, but typically you can't. You would incur a 10% penalty.
Well,
And
you
then,
can. You
yes, you
can.
can. You can.
You can. Right. You
You
very
don't
much
want
can.
to. Yeah.
You just don't want. I mean, you can drive 112 on the highway,
Yes, you could.
right?
Yeah.
You can.
But it might
But
not
you
be in your
should
best.
not.
Right. It might not be in your best interest long term.
Right. Right.
And so you would incur a 10% penalty. And then anytime you take money out, regardless of what age it is, if you take money out, that is taxed as ordinary income. So if you get a
Yeah.
paycheck now from an employer, that would be taxed the same way. So it's just laid on top of your money that you're already earning, if you are earning money, and you're taxed in whatever tax bracket you're in at that point. And so
And
you
I
would
would
just think that.
assume, tell me if I'm right, a lot of people in that situation, they're making more money than they've ever made in their life.
Yes.
So they're at a higher tax bracket they've ever been in their life.
Right.
So, and that's going to be included as part of that tax.
Yes. Now there are 401k loans if you have a 401k or 403b, and a lot of custodians will allow you to loan money to yourself, but you have to stay in the plan typically, and you have to pay yourself back is how that works. But that's normally for like emergency situations.
So tell me, if someone is listening to this and they're like, I don't really know I don't know what I'm in. I don't know if I can do that. Maybe give people the two or three benefits of going through the work. And by work, I probably mean it's, I don't know, maybe an hour or two of research or phone calls, right? We're not talking about,
Yeah.
you got to do it for a month.
Right.
But what is the benefit of, okay, I'm 55 and I know I don't really I didn't really understand the importance of 59 and a half, or I'm beyond 59 and a half and I haven't done anything different with my retirement. What is the advantage that someone would gain by calling you and saying, "Hey, I want to do that thing you guys talked about. Do you think I should or not?" What is the advantage they would gain versus just staying wherever they are?
Well, there's a couple things. Typically, your 401k plan and your employer with your 401k custodian have worked out and set up different options for you to be able to invest in. A lot of plans today, you have a ton of different options, but sometimes they can be limited, and there are things that are not going to be allowed for you to invest in. And so when you do an in-service transfer or you roll your money out, you can invest however you want to at that point. So you
So
could
freedom.
theoretically, yeah,
So
freedom.
freedom. Yeah.
Another way to put it is if you're fishing and you're fishing in a pond, that's kind of like your 401k. So you can catch brim and bass and catfish and so forth. But when you roll your money to a self-directed IRA, it's like you're fishing in the ocean. And so you have a plethora of different fish that you could potentially catch at that point. And so you just have more options and you can control your outcome. I don't know about you, Andy, but I don't think I'm a control freak, but I like being in control. I like driving the car. I would prefer to drive when my wife and I are together. Maybe that's a podcast for another time, but I just like being in control of my outcome because I don't think anybody else understands or is looking out for me as much as I am, right? And so it's in our best
Right.
interest to take responsibility and to guard our outcome and try to help it be the best outcome we can. And so it just allows you to be in the driver's seat to have more authority for how your money is working. And so it's more of a you're getting out of the passive seat into the driver's seat.
I will say the difficult thing for those who are listening, that a lot of times we want to automate things and then not
Yes.
worry about them.
Yeah,
And there can be a lot of good things that happen. If
for
you
sure.
automate, when my kids get paid from mowing the lawn for the neighbor, or my son who works at Culver's or works, does an umpiring job or whatever, I automatically take money out of their checking and I put it into their savings, you know, and they're like, how much money do I have? I'm like, you got way more in savings than you do in your checking, but they never move that
Yeah.
because I don't give them access to it. Okay. And my point is, they wouldn't do it unless dad did it for them
Right.
automatically. And a
Right.
lot of people listening to this, they have automated for so many years that I think emotionally they're like, man, I don't know if I want to mess with this thing. All right. But I think what we want to make sure people hear is that the the way you act when you're 40 with your money should be different than the way you act when you're 60 with your
Ab-
money.
Absolutely.
And the self-directed to me is just another phrase for saying control.
Yes.
Right? You have more control. So, another way you use the phrase, like, it's a prime opportunity,
Yep.
right? Or it's proactive. D Well, this goes back to stewardship. How do you think people should view 59 and a half, David, when it comes to this theme that's gonna run throughout our show and throughout your life and your business of what would a good steward do at 59 and a half, or maybe at 58 as they approach 59 and a half? What does good stewardship you think look like? And maybe just talk about yourself.
Yeah, I I think that Proverbs talks about the ant. We were talking about this with our
Yeah.
7-year-old on Sunday. There was ants at the restaurant on the sidewalk building their little colony, and she was explaining, or she was asking why they do that and why they mess the grass up, And I was like, the Bible says that the ant with no ruler or no chief, they're always working and preparing for the future, and they don't understand probably what the future is. But part of stewardship is understanding that when we're 59 and a half, most people are probably going to hang it up by 65, 67. So we're on that descent down, and there needs to be the realization that our employer or somebody has paid us a paycheck every 2 weeks or every month or however you get paid. But suddenly we're going to have Social Security, but that may not make up enough of our budget needs. So we're going to have to patch that up or fill that gap some way. The onus is on you to figure that out. And so what a good steward would do is start making some projections, even if they're 59 and a half and they're planning to work till 67, but you want to start making some projections about what kind of income you could create from your accounts and preserving the account values and so forth. I'm not saying that we want to take our money out and put it under the mattress, but we want to be a little bit more proactive with how we're investing
Sure.
because we don't have the same 20-year horizon before we're going to use that money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that necessitates us altering our approach a bit.
Yeah, I think about, Bible talks about storing up things like storehouses of food or whatever. And I even think of, I think it was David who was asked by the king to help him interpret dreams.
Right.
I think that was him.
Joseph.
And Joseph, sorry, Joseph. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think that's David. Anyway, so Joseph, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and he has these dreams, and he's like, okay, you're gonna have a famine, and so you got to start storing up food.
Right.
And I think that there's the process of storing things up. That's very important. But then you have to have a plan for distribution,
Yes.
right? I remember seeing movies where like people were storing up a bunch of food, and then because they're stranded somewhere, and then they think they're going to be rescued, so they eat all their food,
Right.
right? And then they don't get rescued, and they're like, "Uh
Yes.
oh," right? We
Yeah.
got so their distribution plan was not very good, right?
Right. Right.
So let me ask you this: give me an example, and this isn't specific retirement advice. This is just an example of options. Give me an example of something someone could do, or that at around that age, that time, about like being proactive with converting different kinds of that money into different kinds of accounts if they wanted to maybe be more balanced. Because obviously in retirement, you want to have a balance of like taxed and untaxed money,
Yes.
right? Meaning money that you've already paid tax on, it's growing tax free. And so when you take it out, you take out a dollar, you get that dollar.
Right.
There's other money that hasn't been taxed. And so it went in tax free, but it's going to come out and be taxed. And so you want to have money in all those buckets.
Right.
So what are some things people could think about doing to move money around in their buckets to get more of a balance?
Yeah, just backing up just 1 second, you made me think of something. Back in my 20s, I really got into cycling, and I was riding bikes on the road with this guy one time. He was a little bit older, and you're riding in the middle of summer and it's blazing hot, and you've got a water bottle or two. And his philosophy was, it's real tempting, when you're sweating and your heart rate's up and it's 90
Yeah.
degrees outside to suck all your water down real quick. He
Yeah.
was like, no matter what ride you're on, you always want to finish with just a little bit of water in your bottle.
Interesting.
And he was like, you got to space that out and you got to plan that for when you're going to
Mm,
drink it. And if you
yeah.
don't, you might get into a bad situation. And it's kind of the same concept. You don't want to eat all your food if you're stuck on the island because you think the helicopter's coming. It's the
Yeah.
same concept. You want to ideally have some left over. Um,
Absolutely.
you definitely want to have some diversity with how your money is taxed. And I think that's what your question was, right?
Yeah. What are some things that people can do? Because again, let's just say that some people are in a situation where they're like, yeah, I've done a good job. I've automated so I don't have to think about it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've got money in sitting in this account. And it hasn't been taxed, you know. What are the kinds of things that people could begin to do that could diversify? Again, these isn't specific things we're telling you to do. It's more like here's the menu of things when you get close to that 59 and a half or at 59 and a half
Right.
that you could do because you go, okay, well, here's some options,
Yeah.
right?
We've been talking about this for years now, and it's kind of become popular. You see it in a lot of marketing now. Maybe it's because our physical state as a country is becoming more dire. I don't know. I think it's been dire for a while, but we're about $38 trillion in debt, and that's the national debt, and we're running a huge deficit every year. And we've got things like the big beautiful bill reduced taxes or eliminated taxes on Social Security for most people for the next 3 years. But what that did when we got that break earlier this year for folks that are over 65 is it sent the Social Security insolvency date up a year.
Yep.
So instead of 2033 being the haircut year where they could start paying maybe 24% less, this is according to the Social Security Administration. So not hearsay or anything. Now it's 2032. And, I don't want to date this episode too much, but that'll be here before we know it. It's right
Yeah.
around the corner. And there's a lot of like big problems going on in our country from a financial
Yeah.
standpoint. And
Yeah.
so, how does the government compensate for that? Well, they've compensated by printing money. We saw that during COVID, and they don't physically print the money, but they digitally print the money and they send out stimulus checks and they
Yeah.
pump money into the economy. And so that creates inflation, like we've seen 40-year high inflation in the recent years. And so that's one thing they can do. The other thing they can do to compensate is raise taxes.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
government doesn't, and I love this reminder.
Yes.
The government doesn't, they're not a business in that they don't make money. I mean, this is conversations you have with children, but also with adults. You realize, like, where does the government get their money? You're like, oh, yeah, us. The
Right.
only way the government can create money is to literally put more of it out there into by literally printing, right? Which we
Yes.
understand does not actually solve the problem, right? It deals with it, but doesn't really solve it.
Yes.
And the other is that they could go ask for more from people, and they don't really ask; they demand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
I talked to Mallory about this, and I know this probably isn't a popular idea. I know it wouldn't be, but I think it would be great if employers did not withhold taxes and people had to physically write a check for their taxes or make a payment, because I think we would all be way more aware of where our money is going if you had to write a check out. Just like when you go to the grocery store, you're acutely aware of what you're spending on that tuna and the chicken and the broccoli and
Have
whatever.
you ever? Well, let me say this: how often, and maybe it's never, but how often do you buy something and in your brain you're like, "Oh, it's going to be this much," and then you get the bill and it's like 10% more, and you're like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Where'd that $8
Yeah.
come from?"
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, taxes." You
Yes.
know?
Yes. I think it would be a great thing. So the point here is that these 401ks and IRAs have hugely benefited us while we were working because they reduce our taxable income and they deferred the taxes. They didn't save us taxes, they deferred the taxes to a later time. And we
Right.
can defer that into our 70s, but at some point, we're going to pay taxes on that money. And we can start paying taxes on it when we're 59 and a half, typically. And there's other ways to do that, but we can pay some of the taxes. If we're not employed with that company anymore, we could roll our money to a self-directed IRA as well. So that's another key thing there, Andy. But what we can do is we can figure out a systematic way that is extremely well thought out, that is monitored yearly, and take some systematic payments out of our tax deferred accounts and pay some of the taxes proactively and convert it to tax free. This isn't something that you want to do willy nilly. You want to be very intentional with what you're doing and how you're doing it. But what you're doing is you're deciding to pay taxes while tax rates are historically low,
Hmm.
which is where we're at, believe it or not.
Sure.
And we put money in the tax free bucket. And that would be huge if the government can't print money anymore and they have to come back and say, hey, Mr. Andy, we need more money. We're raising your taxes. Well,
Right.
I've already paid taxes on this block of money. And
Yep.
so they can't tax you again on it. And that puts you in the driver's seat all the more and gives you more control over your outcome.
Yeah. I got this picture in my mind. I've never seen the movie, but I think Demi Moore is in it. But about like double jeopardy, like you
Yeah.
can't be tried for the
Yes.
same crime
Yeah.
twice. And
Yeah.
it's almost like, hey, you can't be taxed twice on it.
Right.
So now
Right.
some money is taxed twice,
Yes.
like, i.e. when I get taxed and then I spend money and I get taxed and
Yes.
it's just,
Yeah.
buy my house and then it gets taxed, and that's just like the tax loop.
Yes.
I had fun teaching my kids about that one because they're like, Dad,
Yeah.
what's going on? I'm like, welcome to adulthood, kids.
Welcome to it.
Your dollar is really 60 cents. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me
So
ask you this. If someone is um, feeling, they're in their 40s and they're like, man, I feel behind.
yes.
Tell me some things and we'll wrap with this. They've sort of punted. They keep pushing it down, and they haven't really dealt with it. When you meet with people that are behind and you're like, well, this sounds interesting and good, but I don't know if I can catch up. But they have a healthy income. They just haven't paid enough attention to maybe this stuff.
Right.
Um, so maybe someone who's hearing this, who's one of your clients, send it to someone else, maybe send it to their kids, and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're feeling behind. What's your encouragement to those people to get out of that situation or that feeling of I'm behind. It's too late. I'm not even going to start.
Yeah. It's kind of like people that start working out. They haven't worked out. Maybe they need to lose weight. The doctor told them they need to figure out a way to lose weight and they start walking. Like now is a great time to start walking if you've never been walking, because you're going to benefit from it. You're going to be healthier. You're probably going to be happier when you get outside in nature and so forth. And it's kind of the same thing. Like it just scales, money scales. And so, yeah, you might not be scaled to the level that someone that started automating this in their 20s, but wouldn't you rather have some level of financial fitness as opposed to waiting for cardiovascular disease to take you out because
Right.
you did
Right.
nothing? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of the same concept. And, every little bit matters. And I think that anything that you do proactively, it helps you. And I think that when you start trending in the right direction, doors start opening. And I think that you will get more opportunities. I think there's this natural phenomenon when you start doing something proactive that is positive, it attracts more positivity to you. And so I
Yeah.
view that as the same way.
I love that story, and I'll share a quick personal one. I have a brother-in-law, and he will not mind me saying this, who was severely overweight when he married my sister. Not a little, like he was a big dude. And um, one day he kind of started losing weight, and I was like, "That's interesting. He looks a little slimmed down." I thought it might be a little diet or something like that. But then he started losing more and more, and then he lost a ton.
It's
And
awesome.
I didn't see him a lot because maybe see a picture on Facebook or something like that. But then I was like, "Hey, like what are you doing, man?" He goes, "Oh, I started running." And then like but he wasn't just running; he was doing like marathons.
Wow.
And I was like, "Hey, man, like," and then he started doing a bunch of them, like one in every state kind of thing. I mean, he's probably run hundreds of marathons now in the last 10 years, hundreds. And I one day I was able to ask him. I was like, "Hey, man, when did you start?" And he goes, "Um, I walked around our block."
Hmm. Yep.
And I was like, "Bro, that's so freaking profound."
Yes.
He
Yeah.
goes, "I just got up and I walked around our block."
Yeah.
And the next day, he's like, "I walked around the block." And the next day, I walked around 2 blocks. And this guy, like, he runs, 26.2 miles
Wow.
all over the place.
That's
He's run some
impressive.
big, big races.
Yeah.
And, it's hard. Every step is a step. It
Yeah.
takes effort.
Yeah.
But how did he start? He's like, "I walked around the block."
Yeah.
And so I wanna encourage you wherever you're at, if you feel like, "Man, I'm just kinda on the couch on this stuff," reach out to David. He'll help you start walking around the block,
Yeah.
right? And big changes can happen. But also, if you feel like, hey, I've been good, but the race is sort of changing. I need to get into a different mode here. I'm going towards that age. I want to be prepared. I want to be ready. David can help you with those things. That 59 and a half is a big deal, and you don't want to touch it before that because of penalties and taxes. But once you get that age, there's some real opportunities there. But you need a custom solution that fits you and your goals and your family. And that's where David can help. So we've actually created a guide, and you can go to clientsexcel.com/ages to learn about 59 and a half and other ages that are important. And we're going to have other episodes where we talk about those ages more in depth. But those are key ages in retirement that, again, the IRS has chosen those numbers. So we don't question them. We just work within the boundaries of them. And those are important dates. And so we want to encourage you to go to clientsexcel.com/ages and download that guide. It's got some videos and some text you can read. And then if this is of interest, if you feel like I need to, whether you're a current client or a potential, reach out to David and he'll be able to answer your questions to help you on that path towards retirement. David, thank you as always for your time and your expertise. And we look forward to talking about some other key ages. There's 4 or 5 other ones that we'll discover and talk through in future episodes.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Investment advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Clients Excel and Creative One Wealth are unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Licensed insurance professional. Insurance and annuity products are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interests first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Advisors may receive commission for the sale of insurance and annuity products.